Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to queue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. Here we grow again. So grateful to be with you all to learn, teach, whatever hybrid is going on here. I'm the teacher, I'm the student, you're the teacher. We're it all. We wear all the hats around here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I greatly appreciate you as always. Have a important, powerful, empowering, somewhat challenging topic to discuss today that has come up before and it'll come up again, and I feel is one of the most challenging stop-off points, crossroads, if you will, on this journey back to oneness, remembering that is going on with us all. So it's important to continue to discuss, circle, and it's come up in the last couple days, last day or so for me. And so it feels as if this is the topic that wants to be discussed today, explored today, and definitely calling in guidance from guides, higher self, expanded version of myself to deliver this one in a powerful way that is hopefully impactful and helpful. Before I jump into today's topic, I do have a review here on iTunes to read. An iTunes review to read by Haley Ray. You guys know I love my iTunes reviews. They not only help us to reach new people, but certainly fuel my fire to continue this labor of love. So if you haven't reviewed on iTunes, would definitely appreciate it if you did. This one came in by Haley Ray, and the topic is, or the header is, Amazing Spiritual Resource. I've been listening to Positive Head Daily for months now and have yet to hear an episode that wasn't fantastic or exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. I don't even remember how I was led to this podcast, as most people can relate, but it's been such a great resource on my spiritual and self-growth journey. I have yet to find my spiritual tribe, and although I have a few close but long-distance friends who are on the same path, I have often felt somewhat isolated from the general population, coworkers, acquaintances, etc., who haven't yet awakened to a higher level of consciousness. I love listening to Positive Head to remind me that so many others are going through the same experience, and I learned so much from the wide variety of topics covered. Recommending this podcast to my oldest, closest friend is what finally led me to write a review. The day I mentioned I listened to Positive Head, she found it and listened to episode 749. Afterwards, she told me how that specific episode helped shift her perspective on a long, very dramatic issue she had with a family member. Brandon is always mentioning how synchronistic certain episodes are, so I loved seeing it in action. Big thank you to everyone who works to make this podcast a reality. Thank you, Haley, for taking the time to review. And there's a little synchronicity here. put on your surprise face with this review, because I don't remember episode 749. But it sounds like it was, dealing with shifting issues with people, around you. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. It says her friend, had a dramatic issue with a family member. And that's what we're going to talk about, dramatic issues with people that come into your field, if you will, right? That you bump up against in this 3D reality. So perhaps that would be a good one to listen to after this one for some people. I always recommend episode 713, by the way, to folks as like a sort of a foundational. This is the premise. I basically, it's called "What the Heck is Going On Behind the Curtain of This Reality," something like that. And I discuss the ultimate nature of reality, the scientific perspective, the spiritual perspective, what the masters have had to say, in the past. And I kind of tie all that together in a way that gives you a foundation of what this show is all about. So if you have someone that you would like to expose to the show, that may be a good one to send them, to give them an idea. Or, like I often suggest, tell them to pick a number between 1 and, this will be the 775th episode. So I like to co-create with the universe in that way, get playful and have them choose a number, first number that pops in their head, and then tell them to go listen to that episode, and there will be a message for them there. And by co-creating in that way, I believe the universe meets us halfway. I believe that's the way this game works. And that, of course, also ties into what we're going to talk about today. So before I jump in, if you guys also, if you're not in the Positive Heads Facebook group, definitely a great place to connect with other listeners. Also, would love to get some more questions from you. Feeling called to answer some more questions. Even bring folks on to potentially bring you on as a guest to the show where we talk about whatever issues arising with you. That's something I mentioned recently that I'm still open to doing. If any of you have something that you want to send over, Brandon@positivehead.com. If it really resonates, perhaps that we can make that happen. Who knows? We'll see what unfolds. But all right, so let's jump in, shall we? So a dear friend of mine is currently traveling in Europe. Beautiful woman and very outgoing. Lots of incredible, glowy, wonderful energy, and posted about having an issue with men harassing her in her journey, traveling alone in Europe and all over. She's traveled everywhere, and she's done a lot of this sort of thing, and sort of getting approached and harassed by men all over the world, and how frustrating that is, and scary it is for her, out there alone in the middle of nowhere, and some creepy guy harassing her, and this being a repeating thing that she's experiencing. And I, sort of responded, and it turned into sort of a back and forth with me and her and another person. And, it led me to be inspired to talk about it on today's episode. And first off, I just want to acknowledge all of the women out there who have experienced this. Probably every woman that is listening has experienced this. I, of course, cannot say I've been in your shoes, at least not in this incarnation as a male, right? As a white male, there's a lot of things that go on in this world that I simply can't understand from firsthand experience, right? And so I acknowledge that. And I would like to apologize on behalf of all men, myself, if I've ever been, unconscious in my interactions with women, or not aware of, I think back to one time, like, that just pops into my head. I was at a pizza place many years ago. I would never do something like this now, but there was like a placemat with like advertisements on it, and I thought I would be cute, and while we're waiting for our pizza, I would call one of the advertisements. It was a woman realtor, and whatever I did, I didn't, at the time, it was just very spontaneous, and whatever I did, it was just it was kind of like a prank call, right? I'm sitting at the table waiting for pizza, a long time ago, and I like start making like silly jokes about wanting to see real estate or whatever. But the way I did it was not, first off, it just wasn't cool. I was very immature, but I thought about it. It's popped in my head afterwards because, I was acting like creepy and weird to be funny for people around me. But I wasn't considering the impact that was having on that woman. Here she's putting herself out there, advertising, trying to make a living for herself and her family. And I had, called and crank called her and acted like I was this creepy guy that wanted to go look at real estate. Well, I thought it was funny at the time, but it's not funny. There's nothing funny about that. And, it's probably scared her. It probably, put her on edge, my own mother, actually, that was her whole career, was as a real estate agent working on new home sites where she would sit out alone in a model, and people, general public, would come and walk through. And she had some scary experiences where people came in and it did not feel right, And so that sort of thing, had I been more sensitive and aware, or had experienced that sort of thing myself, I probably would have never done it. And it just occurred to me afterwards, and it occurs to me now. And so, anyone out there, who's a guy listening, we need to be really, really aware of, what I heard Tony Robbins talk about when I saw him in Australia a few years ago. He really brought this issue to light by getting had the women in the audience raise their hands. Any women who's felt, insecure about their surroundings in the last 48 hours, raise their hands. Whether walking through a parking lot or, out alone, whatever. It's like half the women in the audience raised their hand. And that was like, oh my gosh, us as men, we can't, begin to understand what that must be like, right? I mean, we can understand it theoretically, but conceptually, but we haven't really experienced that. I mean, sure, we've been in situations where maybe we felt nervous or whatever, but compared to a woman and the energy that comes at a woman, especially when a woman is very attractive, it's like, what a challenging situation. And so I just want to first acknowledge that I don't have the firsthand experience, but I want to talk about how we can look to how we can overcome these sorts of, how we can remove fear, right? What is the best path to removing fear? So if, as a woman, what can you do, right? What can my friend do who's there and, traveling the world alone and getting all this unwanted attention? And sort of what our conversation went back and forth with was this idea. I suggested her starting her day, meditating, resonating with, having a joyful day, attracting the people that she most wanted to attract, and drumming up the vibration of those sorts of interactions. And, based off of her own experience, she kind of came back and said, look, I understand what you're saying. I'm all for this, but sometimes this sort of thinking has been used to justify others' behavior and can be, gaslighting and get taught, and you got to be careful with these teachings, is what she was basically saying, because you can now have a woman thinking, oh, I need to stay in a relationship because my vibration changes how they show up, right? And that's basically what the suggested approach was. Hey, meditate each morning, drum up the vibration of what you want to see more of. Imagine interacting with thoughtful, beautiful, loving people, and her response was, as I mentioned, it's, you got to be really careful with that, because then it justifies these others' behavior. And I don't want to justify anyone's behavior. Where I think there's a big sticking point with this type of information, though, is where people get I notice where people love the idea of we create our own reality. It resonates with almost everyone until there is something that's coming into our field that we don't like. I've often said probably the most controversial thing I say that definitely ruffles feathers is I don't believe there's ever been a victim in the history of all planet Earth. Right? Anything that I've experienced, having someone try and steal my last business, I think I manifested that. I've had ugly situations. There's been people who've had really rough situations, and I believe everything is a vibrational reflection. And so that's challenging, and I get that. That's really challenging. But what I believe happens is, a woman we'll use this example, has this type of an experience, harassment. Now there's a story being told that's what is to be expected. It's always a domino effect, right? And then there's more experiences to reinforce that belief. And it's now, even with the post, it's saying, hey, I'm sick of men doing this thing that is happening to me. And in that case, that feels disempowered, right? Like it's happening to you and there's nothing you can do about it. And what I was suggesting is, no, you actually have all the power. Let's change the story. Yes, these types of experiences happen all the time, and I in no way, shape, or form want to minimize them, especially the more dramatic, scary ones and sad ones that have happened, right? But until we start changing the story, I sat in front of Bashar years ago, and you guys may have heard me talk about this before at Lightning in a Bottle. He gave a talk, and someone stood up and said, me and my husband have been having these scary interactions with non-physical entities, or I forget exactly what it was. It was something, kind of far out. And Bashar, very matter-of-factly started saying, look, your fear of them is calling it in. Right. And if you can resonate where you give it no attention, no energy, none of your power, you'll become effectively invisible to them, is what he said. And I believe that's how this game works. We can't have it both ways. You can't say all is one and then say, but when this external person that is not me comes into my reality and does this thing, that's not me, right? It's all, I believe wholeheartedly, it's all an extension of you. Yes, there are creepy interactions happening out there, horrible things happening out there. There's also wonderful things happening out there. It's a smorgasbord of possibility. And I believe what's happening a lot of times is we offer mixed vibrations. That's what happened with my last company. I'm living on my friend's couch. I'm going to manifest, this huge multi-million-dollar company. Oh, next thing you know, we're Inc. 500, fastest growing private company. But I also was given a lot of energy to conspiracy and fear that someone would take it. The very person that ended up trying to do that, was my business partner, right? So it was like I saw firsthand, that's just a good example for my own personal life, where I saw me getting the outcome of mixed vibrations that I'd offered. I'd offered both of those very strongly, right? And so what's happening when someone is being harassed or any of those, these sorts of things, you expect that, and you're telling the story of that. And where attention goes, energy flows. And I know this is a tricky one for people. I know it is. I get it. And I'm in no way trying to minimize any negative experience that any being has ever had. A lot of times we're looking at beings even, we're zoomed in. We're these multi-dimensional eternal beings who are playing out energetic balancing acts across lifetimes, I believe. So when we're zoomed into one small moment in time, even, it's tricky because it's like, well, how did this child offer this vibration? It's like, you don't know that child's full history. That's an infinite eternal being. You don't know the energies that are balancing themselves out and why they're having the experiences they have. I have full faith and trust it's all happening for love and good in the end. And I also believe that we're coming into a place where we're becoming more aware of how we can actually start creating consciously what shows up next by understanding this, because we can't have it both ways. It can't all be one, but it's not one when someone else is doing something to me, right? And so, practicing the vibration that you want to offer, that you want to see, not perpetuating the stories that you don't want to see more of. And yes, this is not. It's not everyone doesn't have it down to a science where you say, okay, well, I can see that's not working because, you got this and you talk about that. And it's like, yeah, we're offering, if you could look at your thoughts and your energy, your energetic offerings, if you could literally take them out and lay them on a table in front of you each and every day, you would see a mixed bag of vibrational offerings. You would see all kinds of things in there. And I believe that would be such a powerful thing to visualize. Like, okay, Brandon, here's the, 80,000 thoughts you had, vibrational offerings you made today. And 60,000 of them maybe were good, but 20,000 of them, whoa, what were you thinking about here? What were you vibrating with over here? Look at this fearful thing. Look at this. So we're getting these mixed reactions based off of what we're doing, what we're offering. And what I believe we're doing on our journey is we're here to sharpen our axe. We're here to get better at this. We're here to the art of manifestation is the next great art form on our planet, I believe. And, someone who is in a challenging position, like a beautiful woman traveling alone, what I had said to her was like, hey, use this as start telling the story that this is an opportunity for you to start flexing your manifestation muscles, right? People are skeptical of how this works. One idea that I have is go back and listen. A long time ago, actually, I read from a couple years ago. I read from the book written in 1952 by Neville Goddard, The Power of Awareness. And if you go back to episode 364, it's just case histories of people that manifested the most magical things in their life by doing the same sort of practice I was suggesting to my friend, drumming up the vibration, using their most powerful asset, their imagination, to visualize what they want to see more of, to swim in the vibrational pool of what they want to see more of. And so, what's happening out there, I notice in our community is there's a lot of people who are getting like bitter about this sort of teaching, right? Like, oh, you this is dangerous to say that you are responsible for everything that comes into your reality. It's truth. I believe it wholeheartedly. It is my truth, and I'm going to continue. Someone doesn't have to agree with it, and I understand if they don't agree with it, and that's okay. But to share my truth is paramount. I saw a quote yesterday. It said, and the deeper you become, the more some don't know how to deal with it. Because the deeper you become, the more truth you reveal. And the truth scares the hell out of some. Stay deep anyway. And I believe that's very, very important. We are ultimately empowered. There is no out there happening to us. That's very disempowering. That's very, I'm out of control. It's like you are learning, you are a mini God, a mini divine being learning how to create consciously. And you're doing that by being it to see it. You're not doing something in order to have something else. You're having it, you're drumming up the vibration of what it would be like now, and then you're seeing it, right? That's the way this game works. Go look at some of these case histories. There's stories out there that are absolute. That's just one example. Episode 364, where I read from The Power of Awareness, some of the case histories. And by the way, you can go and read, if you search Power of Awareness, you can read, I read all the chapters of the book, and you can find them, on the site if you search those words. But, this is something that there's so much evidence that people who are consciously practicing their vibration, are manifesting things. I truly believe if my friend were to make that her aim and give a ton of energy towards calling in the most magical people, to becoming invisible to those that aren't a match for her vibration, because if everything is vibration, you can only sort of interact with things that are somehow in your field. And it's not a slight if someone has put that in their field. Like we're here learning this game. Like I've done it. Like I'm not judging anyone for having that in their field. Especially you're hearing all these stories that are inundated, coming from our parents, coming from the news. There's a lot to be scared of. There's a lot out there. It's going to harm you. It's going to come after you. And actually, I saw a clip that I think maybe I'll share here now that has Esther Hicks talking about this very thing. And, of course, she talks all the time about how we create with your vibration and your point of attraction, right? She talks about that in all of her videos. But what's interesting about this particular one is she actually talks about how she doesn't really go into that as much as normal. She talks more about how it is not the ignoring of the danger that makes you naive. It's actually the focusing on it. And let's take a listen to this. And that's actually the name of the clip. It's not the ignoring of the danger that makes you naive. I found it on the Flying High YouTube page. Take a listen.
This is so cool. Okay. So I'm going to start with a tiny story. of how I got here. A month and a half ago, I didn't have the money to come here. And I had no idea, but I was having a really, really nice time writing. I'm a writer. And, sorry. I just have to stop and say that I've been a writer for 12 years and I'm writing this story and I love it so much. I'm so grateful for that story. Anyways, I just had to say that. So, a month and a half ago, I got an advertisement in my letterbox from my bank offering me a loan for $3,000. I was like, oh, that's just the amount I need for the cruise. That's great. But I didn't have a job, didn't have money to give the money back afterwards. But I was like, well, I've felt good the whole year, and I had enough money to survive the whole year, so I'll find something afterwards. So I booked the ticket, and then I imagined what I would ask as a question.
How do I pay the money back?
It wasn't that, but it also answered that. The question was, I'm a writer, but I'm also an actress, and my big plan is this series of books that I've been writing for 12 years and I'm still writing. It's a 4-book series. And I plan them to be films, and I have a character that I want to play in them. And I'm planning to do more acting through that. But I also want to do more acting on other projects. But that kind of requires me to move to America because I'm not really interested in the film industry in France, where I'm French. And so I know that will happen because I know my book is going to be hugely successful. It takes about a year for the book to be published. So I have this 1 year of what do I do in the meantime. So my question was going to be that. And then I strongly expected an answer because I knew I was going to come on the cruise. And 5 days later, I got the answer. So it was really interesting to see how the expectation got me the answer. And the answer came through someone contacting me on the internet because I was offering English lessons. And this guy is wanting to learn French, and he's traveling around the world for his businesses. So he wants me to follow him for 5 months to teach him French. So I'm going to travel, still have time to write because it's only 3 hours of teaching a day, and have loads of money, be paid to travel, and then have loads of money afterwards to go to America. So it's perfect.
So now let's chew our way through that just a little bit.
All right.
Because following the conversation that we just had, there was a lot of deliberate intentionality in the way that you were approaching this. But could you feel, as she was explaining, that there was not resistance in that? Could you feel her expectation in a non-resisted place? So that's what we're getting at. When you recognize if the conversation that you're having internally, whether it's adding resistance or whether it's adding emphasis to your desire, when your desire is in that pure place, then the more you talk about it and the more the ideas flow to you, then the more the momentum and the more the thoughts turn to things. Did it feel to you as you were listening to her story? Let's start there. And you don't listen to this because we don't want their answer to influence your answer to the next question. Could you feel an absence of resistance within her? And did it feel to you like you were struggling or straining, or were the answers coming almost as quickly as the questions were being formed within you?
Before right now, sorry, I got confused.
Well, as this was unfolding, didn't it feel like the next logical thought, the next logical step? And so that's that sweet spot that we're talking about. That's that being in the flow, having already gathered enough momentum so that the idea of the cruise, even though there was an expense to it, was not particularly off-putting to you. Now, that's not always the case. We never want to encourage people to go into debt, especially worrisome debt. So as you made the decision to do that, but you held yourself in a vibrational place of no worries. You reminded yourself how well you'd been doing. You had confidence that you could figure it out. And so the idea of that was not resistant in nature. So you just followed the impulse, followed the impulse, followed the next impulse, followed the next impulse, followed the next impulse. And so it will continue to be. The story as you have laid it out is the way that it is unfolding.
And when I got the call, I was like, hell yes, and it's obvious, and of course I'm going. And then, this is bringing to my question, people around me who I've not told them about Abraham, I've not, because they wouldn't be able to hear it, so they don't know what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And suddenly, they see me having this opportunity, and a lot of them thought there had to be something wrong about it. Especially as he contacted me on the internet, it had to be something really bad and very dangerous. And at first it really made me laugh, because it made me realize who was naturally in the vortex and who wasn't.
All right. Now this is a really good indication of where your momentum is and what your alignment is and what your inner being is telling you. So at first it felt, and then?
And then it got so intense because I went to see my family, and some were really stressed out about it. Because I have to say that the reason they were stressed out is because he's from Qatar, and there's so many ideas about the Arab world. What was interesting is I never had a thought of it could possibly be dangerous. It didn't cross my mind.
But the thing that we want to emphasize with you here, and the thing that will benefit others as they're listening in, is so you're in this receiving mode. You're in the receiving mode. You're watching things unfold. And then something else enters the picture, family and concerned friends who are already a part of your vibrational mix, who, as you say, are not ready to be up to speed with you. And so in order for you to even have a conversation, you have to come to where they are. And that's when you began to feel uncomfortable. Not because what they are saying has any credence, but because in order to even have that conversation with them, you had to join them at their vibrational.
Yeah, I know. I saw it happen, how first it was only a few person and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. So I know I got caught into this worrying, that to the point where at some point they really almost convinced me that it was the wrong thing. And then I was like, well, no, of course it's right, because everything was such perfect timing.
What you've just described through this example of what you've been living is the reason that almost everyone denies themselves their own dreams. Because when things start going good, they think it's too good to be true. Their lack of belief in their own worthiness makes them suspect foul play when anything begins to turn in the direction of what they want.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that. So what I've been accused of, because I didn't think of the possible things that could go wrong, and that's what is worrying my family the most, because they sort of know for a long time that I'm naive. So they've accused me of being naive all the time. And they say, well, maybe it's a right thing, but at least we've made you look at what could possibly go wrong, so you're sure that it wasn't that. And now you know that you have to look out for things. And I'm like, well, I don't want to look out for danger. I want to look out for happiness. I don't want to do that. But I would like to know, what is your definition of being naive?
It's the opposite of being normal. Let's start there. When humans use the word, they mean you are not weighing the pros and the cons, the pluses and the minuses. They mean you're not living a balanced experience. You're not considering all of the things. They mean you're not putting your engine there and then your engine on doubt and then your engine on desire and then your engine on doubt. They mean that you're not doing it the way that almost everybody does it, and therefore you are lacking the consideration that is necessary. They mean the opposite of what we teach.
Yeah, right. So that's what I needed from you, is assurance that whenever I feel like it's good, if I don't have the question of should I or should I not, is I can trust that.
Consider this. You're really going to like this. So let's say that you are a pure and innocent, and let's say by human verbal standards, a naive individual. And in being that way, you are in a place of non-resistance and in a place of pure positive energy. And your inner being is there with you, knowing what you want, knowing everything about you. And let's say that, accurately so, under those conditions, your point of attraction would not bring unwanted things to you, because law of attraction never gets it wrong. But let's say you live in a world where everyone's not there, that a lot of them have lived some things that have made them not trust. They've lived some things that have made them doubt, and they keep demanding your attention. And so they keep bringing you to this resonance, to this resonance, to this resonance. So here's a very simple question that we have for all of you, and especially for you. If you are in this place, this sweet, naive, if you want to use the word, pure positive energy girl, and your inner being is there with you, and something comes across your path that is sinister in nature, first of all, could it get into your experience? And let's say, even if you'd been influenced by others a little bit, so that it did get into your process a little bit, so someone who planned on taking something from your purse or picking something from your pocket or is in your vicinity, from this position of alignment, do you think you would recognize it? Do you think you would feel the discord of who you really are? Do you think your sensitivity to this pure positive energy, don't you think it would be obvious to you that there was something not wanted? Don't you think your activated alignment with source would let you know, would not push you away from that, but would call you otherwise?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I felt when I...
So wait for just a moment. So which would you rather be yourself or have someone that you loved be? Someone who's here where their sensitivity to anything unwanted is keen, or would you like to talk to them about it so much that they are so accustomed to this feeling that they don't recognize the offness of it when it's right before them? Did you get that? Humans dull their guidance by focusing on unwanted to the point that they don't know what their guidance is telling them. We'd call that naivete.
So this was just as preparation, because I have my sister's wedding 2 days after the cruise, and I'm going to have my entire family, so I need to be strong.
You might want to stay in Rome for the Abraham seminar 2 days after the cruise.
That's on the day she gets married. So. But that's all right. But now that I've talked to you, I'm sure it'll be fine. It was fine already before. It was better to hear it from you. So thank you.
Well, there was a powerful conversation that we just had, and a new point of awareness that many of you felt. And we're really wanting you to know that the more in alignment you are, the more sensitive to resistance that you are. But the more you spend in resistance, the less likely you are to know it when you see it. It's such an interesting thing. In parents warning their children about things that are of danger, what they're really doing is increasing the momentum about the very thing that they don't want their children to live. And they're making their children less likely to notice it. Less likely to notice it. Why? Because of the familiarity of it, because of the momentum of it, because of the normalcy of it. Really good conversation.
Thank you. I just had one tiny thing. It's really tiny.
You can warn yourselves into very dark corners where there's no possibility of anything ever finding you because you're buried so deep. But there's no joy, there's no adventure, there's no expansion, there's no enjoyment of life there. What you're really wanting to do is to come into alignment with who you really are, and then you can be out everywhere where law of attraction will bring to you only those things that are a vibrational match to where you are. The world is full of things, especially these days, that you are aware of. Not more things happening, but more of your awareness of those things that sort of want to drive you into seclusion and out of what you think is danger. But you are adventurous beings who want to be out there exploring.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a minute to tell you about the exclusive Dream Builder live virtual event from January 27th to 29th. If all it took was 3 short days to turn your life around, would you feel and have the courage to do so? If so, then you won't want to miss best-selling author Mary Morrissey and her team of all-stars who will show you how to break all the rules, feel more confident, and set yourself up for enormous abundance. You'll discover how to build a new, supremely confident you in 3 short days. Super powerful beyond what you dreamed possible. Learn how to rewire your subconscious mind with tools of spiritual manifestation, raising your vibration so powerfully that life rearranges itself to help your dreams come true. Plus, you'll discover the #1 secret to achieving the fabulous new life you and everyone deserves, so you can enjoy more happiness, more wealth, more joy in every area of your life. Go to bti.com/positive and register for your free tickets with a reimbursable deposit today. What a powerful perspective, right? And I would like to kind of wrap this up today with something that synchronistically came in. Actually, this morning, someone had sent me their favorite example of what is the meaning of life. And you guys know I always ask that to my powwow interview style guests, as the last question, what's the meaning of life? And this is, I believe, relevant. It was sent to me an hour or so ago, and I'm going to read it. It's a professor who always asks this question in class or something at some point, and this time the question was turned back on him, and he said, "I'll answer your question." He took his wallet out of his hip pocket. He fished into a leather blindfold and brought out a very small round mirror, about the size of a quarter. And what he said went like this: "When I was a small child during the war, we were very poor and we lived in a remote village. One day on the road, I found the broken piece of a mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in that place. I tried to find all the pieces and put them together, but it was not possible. So I kept only the largest piece, this one. And by scratching it on a stone, I made it round. I began to play with it as a toy and became fascinated by the fact that I could reflect light into dark places where the sun would never shine, in deep holes and crevices and dark closets. It became a game for me to get light into the most inaccessible places I could find. I kept the little mirror, and as I went about my growing up, I would take it out in idle moments and continue the challenge of the game. As I became a man, I grew to understand that this was not just a child's game, but a metaphor for what I might do with my life. I came to understand that I am not the light or the source of light, but light, truth, understanding, knowledge is there, and it will only shine in many dark places if I reflect it. I am a fragment of a mirror whose design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light into the dark places of this world, into the black places in the hearts of men, and change some things in some people. Perhaps others may see and do likewise. This is what I am about. This is the meaning of my life." And then he took his small mirror out, holding it carefully, caught the bright rays of daylight streaming through the window and reflected them onto the questioner's face and hands folded on the desk. And I believe that is from a book, It Was on Fire When I Lay Down on It by Robert Fulghum, I believe it looks like here. So I love this. The one thing I would maybe disagree a little bit with is who's the source of the light, but whatever. That's, I believe it's all within us all. And, I imagine he's saying, it's coming from some higher external source. I believe we are that source. But other than that, the story is beautiful, right? And so I would like to leave today's episode with that thought. What if, not only drumming up the vibration of what we want to attract and see more of, but when we call in something that wasn't maybe in alignment, maybe we've offered a mixed vibration and we call in something that isn't in alignment with that vision, instead of closing our hearts, becoming fearful, becoming angry, any of those energies, if you said, this is an opportunity for me to shine light. This is an opportunity for me to be a light to this person who's obviously, if, let's say they were harassing you, to show them what it feels like. And I find that using questions is a great way. Imagine if someone were harassing you and someone say, hey, maybe you're not thinking about it fully. Do you understand how this feels to me? This is how it's received. It's, and explaining to them, showing them. In some cases, this isn't possible if they're completely unconscious and, violent or something. obviously get the heck away, right? But there are instances where I've found that I can shift people with being a mirror to them of what they're doing and how it's being received and the impact of it. We're all pretty empathic beings, and if we can get others to feel what their actions are co-creating, a lot of times it brings awareness and light to that situation. And now what have you done? You've taken a not so great situation and you've brought healing to it, right? And as he said, change some things and some people. That may be the opportunity. It's always about the story that we're telling, right? Let's start telling a story of we're all lighthouses here to bring light into the dark crevices. And when we find ourselves in a dark crevice, remember that. And then when we're not in those instances, be thankful and grateful for it, because it's that contrast that makes the light so beautiful, right? There is no painting that's ever existed that was beautiful without shadow in it. So when you understand that's part of it, that's a part of the whole journey. And we get the opportunity to bring the light to those who are so unconscious that they're doing dark things and behaving in unconscious manners. All right. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I hope this helps to shine a light on this challenging topic. Pun intended. I do have a song to leave you with that seems quite appropriate. It's one that's always jumped out to me. I love Ayla Nerio, her work, her music. And this one is called Show Yourself. And I'm interpreting what I think it might be about. Only obviously she could answer. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. But she says in it, I do not show the skin for you. I show myself to know myself. I show for the earth from which I came. My prayer is for you to do the same. And she repeats that and then says, a bunch. And then she goes into, I release you. I receive you. I release you. I receive you. And I think she's talking about, bearing skin. In our community at festivals and things, you see people, women a lot of times who are really freeing themselves in that manner and probably are attracting unwanted attention at times. And my feeling is that she is addressing this sort of experience. Like, look, this isn't for you. Don't sexualize me. I'm freeing myself. I'm being natural and connecting with the earth, dancing perhaps, right? And then she goes on to say, I receive you and I release you. And, I show myself to know myself. I show for the earth from which I came. My prayer is for you to do the same. Till next time, hope you enjoy this. Show Yourself by Ayla Nerio. Journey well. Love you all so, so much.
I peek out from patterns, eyes peel back the lanterns. This surf is a swift one. It's a delicate thrashing, this undertow daunting. The task is at hand, not a moment too soon. When doubled and breaking, all wide-eyed and crazy, you whisper sweet somethings to the one you are saving. Your mirror in likeness, your servant in highness, the earth in one being, your body the queen. I do not show the skin for you, I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. I do not show the skin for you. I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. All we've got, it will spread it like comfort. We'll out all the insides and doubt all the corners. And when doubled and breaking, all wide-eyed and crazy, you'll whisper sweet somethings to the one you are saving. Your mirror and likeness, your servant in highness, the earth in one being, your body the queen, your mirror and likeness, your servant in highness, the earth in one being, your body the queen. I do not show the skin for you, I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. I do not show the skin for you, I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. I do not show the skin for you, I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. I do not show the skin for you, I show myself to know myself, I show for the earth from which I came. My prayers for you to do the same. For the earth from which I came, my prayers for you